Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Happy New Year. I am here to share with you my best books of 2023 and go through a few of my reading stats for the year as well. So I ended up reading 76 books in 2023 and it took me right until the end of the year to get to that number. I think I was panicking at the beginning of December thinking I wasn't going to make it, and I think I forgot that December is actually a long month and there's actually lots of reading time that comes up in that time because of the holidays. And so I was able to squeeze another short one in there right at the end. My reading goal was 75 books. So I was really happy with that. Out of those books, about 30 of them were nonfiction. So that's the breakdown. And I'm really happy with that. I do read a lot of nonfiction and I feel like it's a good balance for me between fiction and nonfiction, and I feel like I get a really broad amount of reading done with that division, so I'm pretty happy with that. I read 3 poetry collections in 2023, which is low for me. I usually do read a bit more poetry than that, so that will be something that I will work on in 2024. I read a total of 24,714 pages. I read 3 larger books this year, and so that really contributed to an increased page count. And 14 of the books that I consumed were on audio. So I tried to do at least one audiobook a month. As long as I'm keeping up with my podcasts, then I'm happy to add in more audiobooks if I feel all caught up. And I didn't DNF one book in 2023, which I thought was really interesting. And I have to say that I've kind of changed my opinion of DNFing. I know a lot of people want to embrace DNFing. And as a rule, I think that's a wonderful thing to keep in mind, that if you're really not enjoying a book, you should just stop reading it. But I did have a couple, I think at least 2 experiences this year where I really didn't enjoy the first part of a book, and I contemplated DNFing and I didn't, and the second half of the book really clinched the book for me and made me enjoy it overall. So I'm a little reluctant to DNF because of that. And I think what I might do in future is, if I'm really not enjoying the first part of the book, I'm going to skim a bit through the rest of it, see if the tone and everything remains the same. If it does, I'm going to DNF. If it seems to shift or something changes, a perspective or something, I might give it, 50 more pages and see. So, the jury's still out for me on DNFing. I am not someone who refuses to DNF, but again, I want to make sure that I'm not letting a really good book slip by just because of, writing at the beginning that I'm not jiving with, or for whatever reason. There can be a million. I'm sorry about my voice. I'm just getting over a cough that I had last week, so please bear with me on the voice. Okay, so now we're going to get to, I had to put in some honorable mentions this year in my best books. And I chose 1 fiction and 1 nonfiction for my honorable mentions. So my fiction honorable mention is Crow Lake by Mary Lawson. I read this as part of my Reading Across Canada project, which is one of 2 books that are part of this project that ended up on my top books of 2023 list. Crow Lake is a family drama set in Northern Ontario, and Mary Lawson is a fairly well-known Ontario writer who was nominated for the Booker with another one of her books a couple years ago. I was so immersed in Crow Lake. It's a family story about siblings and what happens to them when their parents die when they're young, and how they come together or not, and how they survive as a family. It is about, I think there's a large part of it that is a very quiet story, but it's about kind of those internal feelings around relationships. And for me, those are just things that kept me engrossed in the characters. So I am a character reader. The characters were fantastic. They grew, they changed, they evolved. It was a wonderful story, and I'm so grateful to have read it. My honorable mention for nonfiction is Black Lion by Sicelo Mbatha. I read this before, or actually during my trip to South Africa in March. And I just cannot say enough. I've done a full review on this book, so I will link that down below so that you can go to it if you're interested in nonfiction, own voices, written by a Black South African man who is talking about his relationship to nature and how he has become a ranger, which is someone that goes into the bush and takes people into the bush to experience the wildlife of South Africa. But more than that, it is a story about someone who has been denied through apartheid. His culture was denied the interaction with nature that was really important to them. And so they are having to rediscover and reconnect with nature. And Cicelo's story is incredible. It's very uplifting. It is a testament to his spirit, and I really, really would recommend, if you like nature writing, to read this book. I think it is just superbly important for talking about access and talking about Indigenous peoples and promoting their own relationship with their land. Okay, so next I'll talk about my favorite poetry collection. As I said, I only read 3, so maybe this isn't a very good overview, but I wanted to just shout out again one more time Pistachios in My Pocket by Sareh Farmand. This is a local Vancouver poet. She wrote an absolutely stunning poetry collection that to me reads like a memoir. So if you like memoir and you like poetry, this is kind of a combined example of that. One of the best I've ever read. Sareh Farmand's family immigrated from Iran, and so she shares her family, her mother, her grandmother's Iranian experiences, and talks about immigration to Canada, talks about that dichotomy between this being your home but you not being from here, and all these wonderful things, all through a poetry collection, which I thought was really excellent and very well done. Okay, so best audio of 2023 was very hard for me to choose. I listened to some exceptional audiobooks this year, and so I just want to recommend 3 because I can't pick between them. So in nonfiction audio, listening to The Lonely City by Olivia Laing. It's a wonderful book in general. I do want to actually own it in physical copy as well, but the audio was wonderful. So please check it out. If you've ever thought about reading this book, I do recommend the audio highly. Next, I have 2 fiction books that I both loved the audio versions of. The Glass Hotel by Emily St. John Mandel. I've listened to both Station 11 and The Glass Hotel on audio. I loved both of them. They are just stories, I think, that lend themselves to audio very well. You are a little bit confused at the beginning because the time jumps a bit, but then when everything starts to come together for Emily St. John Mandel's books, the audio experience is just fantastic. The Essex Serpent by Sarah Perry was the other book that I just adored on audio. The narrator for this book, and I cannot remember her name, but I will put it here, was superb. She could characterize the voices of all these different characters, one of the best I've ever heard. So I just was completely absorbed by this novel, and I really think it has a lot to do with the exemplary job that this narrator did on this audiobook. So check out any 3 of those. I do not think you'll be disappointed. This year in my 2023 reading, I wanted to include a new category, which I have called Biggest Surprise. So these are 2 novels that I read that I really didn't have any idea that I would love as much as I did. And they are both featuring animals as the main characters. The White Bone by Barbara Gowdy and Watership Down by Richard Adams. So I think they are a wonderful subset of a novel, and they are, The White Bone is to elephants what Watership Down is to rabbits. They are so sweeping. They create a whole culture that these animals imbue. They talk about different issues around the environment and around access that are super important without being preachy. And they create this world that you become absorbed by. And so I think both of these should get a lot of hype. And if you enjoy reading about animals, then I would suggest reading both of these. If you have a hard time with animal distress or pain, then I would say be cautious, because they both feature that. But I think it's really important to remember when reading about animals that animals do face pain, and they do face danger. And if you only want to read stories about them that are happy and don't feature any discomfort, then you're not really, exploring the true experience of animals. And so I just think both of these are fantastic, and I highly recommend them. Okay, so we're getting near the end here. My top nonfiction read of 2023 was The Baby on the Fire Escape by Julie Phillips. I did a full review of this book. I will put it down below. It is about motherhood. It is about being a parent, being creative. It is about the challenges of trying to pursue your life's passion while also raising children, and how that changed during the 20th century with different examples of different writers and artists over different decades. So you have Alice Neel, you have Doris Lessing, you have Angela Carter, you have Alice Walker, you have Audre Lorde, lots of different examples of women artists, writers who raised children, and how they worked all that into their creative pursuits. So it was brilliant. Highly recommend. Again, there's a review if you want to learn more. So my favorite fiction book of 2023 was The Break by Katherena Vermette. I will link below my reading wrap-up of this book, where I go into a long-winded explanation of why I loved it so much. It is not an easy book to read, so it's not something light. It is heavy, but it is so well executed that you are so in love with the characters. You want them best for them. And the sense of family that Katherena Vermette created in this novel is just exceptional. And it stayed with me. I'm so excited to read the next two novels that she's written, because they feature some characters from The Break, The Strangers, and The Circle. I can't believe I waited so long to read this book. I think it came out in 2015. I really should have read it sooner, but I'm so glad now that I know how good it is. This was also read for my Reading Across Canada project. This was for the province of Manitoba. So that is my reading stats and best reads of 2023. I can't say that this was the best reading year I've ever had, and that's not because I didn't read good books, but more because I struggled with reading at my normal rhythm and pace. But that's okay. The year is finished. Now on to 2024. And I'm hoping that this year my reading just feels a bit more fluid and a bit more natural, and I don't feel those struggles that I did in 2023. Wishing you an absolutely wonderful reading year in 2024, and I will be back again soon with another video. Thanks for watching.